friends, it's Cecilia. Welcome to my home studio where I am going to teach you all of my tips and tricks and secrets and hacks and all that jazz, because this is the first episode of my brand new series, the LPSTube Guide. I actually made a couple videos in the past called the LPSTube Guide, but those are pretty old and my channel was a lot smaller back then. Nowadays, I think I have the proper chops and stuff to give you guys tips on how to do LPSTube, how to become a big LPS tuber, because I came from almost nothing to well over 100,000 subscribers in a matter of 4 years. If you're excited for this series and there's a topic you want me to discuss, leave your ideas in the comments below. I'm going to be making this series with you guys in mind, and I really want to go over the topics that matter most to you. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about what is certainly the biggest hurdle that the LPS community has ever faced. COPPA. First of all, time for a mini history lesson. COPPA stands for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. It was enacted by the FTC in 1998 to protect young children from encountering dangers online. So if you've ever been curious as to why most websites say that you have to be 13 or older to sign up, you have COPPA to thank. In 2019, after discovering the huge influx of kids channels on YouTube, the FTC told YouTube, hey, you're collecting a lot of data from kids, which you are not supposed to do. And so they sent them a small fine of $170 million. As you can imagine, this put YouTube under a lot of pressure to change their guidelines. So although the restriction on kids' content can feel straight up draconian and like YouTube doesn't care about its creators, seriously, I can't even turn on the bell for more SpongeBob content, I think it's important to see things from their perspective. While kids' videos and channels are under a lot of restrictions, no comments, no community tab, no bell, and no targeted ads, which means that creators can lose up to 90% of their revenue. I honestly don't feel like this is the outcome that YouTube wanted, because obviously less revenue for creators means less for them too. And engagement is what drives their platform, so no comments, I don't think they want that either. But after receiving so much pressure from the government, this is probably the best solution short of banning kids' content from YouTube altogether. With all that being said, I think we all can see the impact that COPPA has had on our community. We've lost so many important figures on LPSTube. I miss you, Anna. And many of you have been worried to even start a channel, which is really sad to me. YouTube was practically the birthplace of my creative spirit, and I hate to think that we're losing potentially world-changing artists because they felt discouraged from the start. So for those of you who are scared that COPPA will ruin your LPSTube career and have no idea how I do it, this one's for you. A lot of people worry that just because they're making videos with toys that YouTube is going to come after them and mark their videos as made for kids, but this isn't actually true. The good thing about COPPA is that it's mainly targeted towards content that is very clearly made for children, stuff like educational content, sing-alongs, children's cartoons, stuff like that. The LPS community, however, falls in a definite gray area, and because our community is so small compared to the rest of YouTube, it's very unlikely that YouTube is going to actively crack down on LPS videos, because many LPS channels and videos that are marked as made for kids were done so by a bot and not by a human. Since LPSTube is a gray area, there are some circumstances where you should mark your videos made for kids and some where you shouldn't. And thankfully, most of the content that is made on LPSTube today doesn't need to be marked as made for kids. For instance, if your videos feature characters who are 13 and up and they're presented in a way that would mainly appeal to people who are 13 and up, you're good to go. While my skits can get pretty silly, and I'm not surprised that I have some younger fans who like these videos, I always place my characters in situations that are more associated with being a teenager or an adult, things like high school antics, having a job, and especially in the security guard skits, I like to make jokes about adult things like taxes that only adult viewers would fully understand and find funny. One day, I opened up the mailbox only to discover I had a letter from the IRS saying I didn't pay my taxes on time. Yeah? That's why I couldn't buy you chips tickets and made you sell all your stuff at the yard sale! Also, general talking videos also count as a gray area, for instance my tag videos, truth or dare, and this series. The content of these videos wouldn't change drastically whether I showed my face or an LPS. Well, maybe this series would just be called the YouTube guide, but the tips I'm giving can apply to many different types of channels. In these cases, LPS is just my chosen medium, and just because I'm making these videos with toys doesn't necessarily mean that I'm making them for kids. If you'd like to know more about these gray areas, PuppyLover863 made a fantastic video last year about COPPA, and it's actually what motivated me to continue my channel and not let it die. I'll leave the link up here because if COPPA is something that concerns you, this video will definitely be of interest to you and make you a lot more relieved. The gray areas I just covered pretty much account for most LPS videos today, but because LPS are still toys that were originally made for kids, there are certain circumstances where it's probably best for you to mark your videos as made for kids. The biggest example is if you are under 13. Technically, YouTube's terms of service state that you can't even use YouTube if you're under 13 unless you're using YouTube Kids. Personally, I don't know what 12-year-old is going to be watching baby videos, but that's besides the point. COPPA guidelines are meant to protect children under 13, so if you are in this age group, anything you post needs to be marked as made for kids for your own protection. Otherwise, you may risk getting in trouble with YouTube and possibly having your account taken down for not following those terms of service. It sucks for sure, but not having comments on your videos for a couple years is a lot better than having some creep commenting weird things on your videos or trying to exploit you. And when you're so young, it's difficult to tell when that's actually happening to you, so it's just best to leave those comments off. Instead, use this time to have fun making whatever videos you want and experimenting with what you want to do. Although the lack of engagement kinda sucks, the upside is that you won't have anyone to discourage you and you can just follow your own path without worrying a thing. Another instance of when it's the best choice to mark a video as made for kids is when you're making videos featuring characters who are children or feature childhood experiences that are presented in a way that it would probably only be interesting for kids. Things like LPS daycare, first day at school, LPS at the playground, etc, etc. Now, you're not barred from doing videos like that, but whether or not you should be marking them as made for kids is all going to depend on how you're presenting them. For instance, I have a video called LPS Elementary School versus High School where I feature many segments with young child characters. However, the kids in that video are performing a lot of stunts that real kids should not be doing, and I'm also presenting these characters from the perspective of an adult who will see them as crazy and chaotic children who have no control over themselves.
What the? Okay, children, it's time to go back inside now. Franklin, now!
If I instead showed these scenes in a manner that is really lighthearted or cheery, presented them in more of a way that children view the world with the tone of a kids show, giving lessons for children to follow, then I wouldn't argue with YouTube if they marked it as made for kids. I hope that makes sense for you guys. The way I work around this is by not featuring child characters as the focal points of my videos. All of my characters are teenagers or older, and like in the previous example, if there are child characters in my videos, they're usually presented from the perspective of adults, rather than in a way that could teach children lessons or whatever. Now that we've covered the gray areas and when you should mark your videos as made for kids, there are actually some examples where you should not mark your video as made for kids. This is especially true since the LPS community is getting older and people are making more videos with like strong subject matter, and these are videos that we don't want in the hands of children. A glaring example is LPS Popular. The series has been marked as made for kids, but honestly, I think Sophie should argue against it if she can. Not only is the subject matter more appealing to teenagers, and Sophie herself has stated that this is meant for an older audience, but in my opinion, I think it's actually harmful for kids to be watching a series about high school drama and eating disorders because they aren't old enough to comprehend the message. Hopefully this isn't triggering for anyone, and if it is, I apologize, but just to emphasize this point, when LPS Popular first came out, I was 11 or 12, and for a little bit I actually thought that eating disorders were cool because that's what Savannah was doing to get skinnier. Luckily, this phase only lasted like 3 days because I could not resist the orange chicken at school. But you can see how an 8-year-old who might already be developing self-esteem self-esteem or body issues might see something like that and go down the completely wrong path. Other examples are any LPS videos that contain violence, cursing, gore, intense romance scenes, really anything that is too dark or mature for a child to be watching. So basically, if the LPS WAP music video ever gets a COPPA strike, I'm leaving. Just kidding. Now, don't feel like you need to make your videos super explicit or adult because of COPPA. The overall point I'm trying to make is that as long as your videos are very clearly not targeted for kids, you basically have nothing to worry about. If you're still a little paranoid after hearing all of this, don't worry, because there are lots of ways that you can protect yourself from ever getting a COPPA strike, and if you do get one, there are ways to navigate around that. Now, I've actually had one of my videos marked as made for kids by YouTube before. It was my Friday Night Funkin' custom video, and luckily, out of all the videos YouTube could have chosen, this was probably the easiest one to appeal. If this ever happens, YouTube allows you to appeal your strike and explain your reasoning, so I told them that I was using materials like acetone and paints, which are dangerous for children to use, and also Friday Night Funkin' is very explicitly not made for kids either, so either way, I was not making that video with children in mind. If this ever happened to me again on one of my regular videos, for instance a Mr. Big Head skit, I would argue that my humor is meant for teenagers and young adults, which it is, and that I choose subject matter that would be more appealing to those age groups rather than children. If you're ever in the situation where you have to make an appeal, you can argue that your content is meant for teens and general audiences, and also talk a little bit about how the LPS community is largely comprised of people over 13. Just make sure that that's all actually true, because if YouTube strikes a video called like LPS baby's first time pooping, I don't think there's really a way out of that one. And if you're a former LPSTuber who left because your channel was marked as made for kids, I miss you, Hannah. Go check and see if there's a way for you to appeal your channel, or at least some of your videos. Now, I don't have any personal experience with having my channel marked as made for kids, but it never hurts to check, and if I was able to survive a COPPA strike, I hope that you can too. Another big way that I protect my channel from getting COPPA strikes is if you scroll down the description of any of my videos, you'll see a long disclaimer explaining that I'm an adult making videos for teens and young adults, and that I'm not responsible if children decide to watch them. It's out of my control if a 6-year-old wants to watch the Mr. Big Head videos, but I can control the kinds of jokes I make and what the overall tone is. My persona on this channel is very cheery and upbeat, so I can totally understand why children would watch my videos, but I do make a point to make my videos enjoyable for general audiences and never explicitly for kids. And one last little thing, if you've watched my fan mail videos, you've heard me say that if you're under the age of 13, to ask for a parent's permission first before sending fan mail. COPPA states that children under 13 need parental consent before sharing personal information, so I make this very clear so it's never misinterpreted that I'm trying to like harvest children's data or anything like that. This applies to anything where you are collecting anyone's personal information, so for instance, in my future giveaways and contests, I'll also be making it clear that you need to be 13 or have a parent's permission to enter. As you can see, I put a lot of thought into how I run my channel to fit COPPA guidelines, and while we've been living in COPPA world for almost 2 years, I am still completely in the clear. I reached 100,000 subscribers after COPPA was launched, and after this happened, I applied for my play button and little check mark, which both require YouTube employees to verify your channel content. I was really nervous that YouTube was going to look at my channel and automatically mark it as made for kids, but this didn't happen. I am still flourishing and vibing and getting comments on my videos and living with LPS videos COPPA free. So I think that confirms that YouTube is okay with LPS channels as long as they're taking measures to follow COPPA guidelines. One last little thing before I go, this isn't directly COPPA related, but some people think it is the comments glitch. Some LPSTubers have complained about YouTube turning off their comment sections on certain videos. This has happened to Sugar Diamond, LPS Honey, and it's also happened to me a few times. If this happens to you, don't panic. If the video hasn't been marked as made for kids, then you can turn the comment section back on and things will be back to normal. Although you may want to check in on your video every so often, because sometimes they can turn off again. I don't know why this happens exactly, but I've come across many other videos from YouTubers big and small that have their comment sections turned off for seemingly no reason. So I'm assuming that this is a glitch that happens sometimes that YouTube hasn't fixed yet. Again, as long as your video hasn't been checked as made for kids, you can just turn the comments back on and hopefully you'll have no more trouble. Last year, almost half of my videos had their comments turned off and it was a pain to manually turn them all back on, but after that, I think I've only experienced this glitch once or twice. Others have been having it more often right now, so so I guess it's all a matter of chance and if the evil bugs decide to catch you. Honestly, don't worry about this at all because it's unlikely that it's going to happen to you. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up just in case it does happen and you're worried that you're getting a COPPA strike. Don't worry, you're not. Whew, so that was a doozy to talk about. I hope I've explained well enough what COPPA and made for kids actually mean. While it's true that some LPS videos do need to be marked as made for kids, the majority don't, really. If your videos fall under a gray area or are clearly not made for kids, then it's worth a shot to make an appeal because the worst they're gonna say is no. But honestly, I hope that with all of the explanations and what I've cleared up for you guys, that you'll at least know for future reference what kind of content is and isn't made for kids. I hope that this encouraged some of you guys who have been scared to make LPS videos. The last 2 years have been very, very hard for this community, but after seeing what actually happens in the age of COPPA, I hope that this will encourage people to start or come back to LPSTube because really it doesn't have to be all that scary. If you like this video and are excited for more of the LPSTube guide, let me know your questions, comments, concerns about LPSTube. I'm definitely going to be going over tips on how to grow your channel, editing systems, script writing, stuff like that, but if there's anything else that you want to know, be sure to leave it in the comments and I will consider it as an episode for the series. I hope you guys all have a wonderful Saturday, Friday, Wednesday, whatever day you're watching this. You guys are the next generation of LPS tubers and filmmakers, and I really want the best for you all. So with that said, I think I am gonna go take a nap right now, go play on my phone, and yeah, see you guys later. Bye!